Who ends up getting on while we're doing this? That is a little bit. Should probably make sure notifications aren't going to blast us. There we go. I wonder who's going to get on first. Duck Rabbit Fortune. What's up? Man, oh man. Where do I have this thing? I'm going to show y'all something that I built, and then we're going to grind on a knife. And we're going to work on the cleaver that we did in the last live stream. What's up, Craig? I'm doing good. I been just getting a bunch of stuff knocked out. What's up, John? I built a little knife vise for like $20. I'm gonna show it to y'all. I'm gonna release a little video on it. I think I'm gonna do like a YouTube short about it, and then I might make a video, like an actual like 8-9 minute video later. But yeah, it's a simple little knife vise, and I'm gonna show that to y'all. Whenever I do the YouTube short, I'll actually give you the kind of like the parts list to make it. And then of course we're gonna grind out this cleaver and do some bevels and stuff like that on it. I've actually got some lights over here now, so while we're outside, even though it's dark, everything's lit up. Makes it a little bit better. So got at least a little bit of that going on. So let me show y'all this little knife vise right here. It's that. What's up, Mark? So I'll pull y'all down so I can actually give y'all a close-up of it. Let's flip y'all around. So this is the little knife vise. This is a railing, like a little railing support that actually already has a little Allen bolt on it right now to tighten this up. And then all I did was I took some black pipe, I cut the threaded ends off of it, welded on some nuts. Now I'm gonna flip it around a little bit so y'all can actually see this stuff. So welded on 2 nuts, just 3/8 nuts on there, and then got a dowel rod and put leather on it. So with this, you rotate it, whatever you need to do. I'll put it back to where it's vertical again like that, and then you just set it here. But I'm going to show this all to y'all, and then of course loosen it up, knife out of it. That's one of my camp knives that I'm working on right now. A rough profiling on the handle. But pull these out, and all it is, like I said, dowel rod that's split down the center, and then I added 2 pieces of leather to it. That way I don't have to worry about putting a blade in there that's not taped up or something like that. It won't mess up the finish. And that just goes right inside there. But I'm going to be doing a YouTube short about that. You know, make that whole entire thing for like $20. It's a pretty handy little tool. All right. Bring y'all back around here to me. So let me read some of your what's things y'all saying here. Making tracks on the Slavic razor. Hell yeah. Got a rough ground heat treated. It's 8.5 inches long, 2.5 inches wide, 1/8 inch thick spine. Nice. Full flats, 0 edge. Heck yeah. T-wrench. Yeah, I might end up doing something like that. This is the only reason why I actually use this. It's not really for that. This is the wrench that I use for. Come right down here. Whenever I'm locking this down, this is the Allen wrench that I use for it. I've used this for a long time, but this work rest is actually bolted down here, and I use it for that. I also use it for my profiling, or not my profiling jig, but my bevel jig, the plunge line jig. I'm going to say 3 different names before I get to it. Yeah, plunge line jig. This is the same size for it. I like this. It works with, like, for some reason, every Allen thing that I use. But that stays over here on the actual workbench that has all the grinding stuff. Okay, so the goal for tonight is, like I said, get that ground. So if you don't remember what we're working on, I need to put this back in here real quick and tighten it down. I don't want the blade falling off or some random stuff like that happening. In my luck, I start grinding on this and I vibrate the blade off of the. There we go. All right, so still here. So we're gonna be working on this right here. I went ahead and drew a little profile on it. I cut off a little bit of the top here because it kind of came out and then dropped down, and just went ahead, cut that off. But we're gonna go ahead, profile this, get it cleaned up, and then start grinding preheat treat bevels. Of course, get the handle or the tang modified just a little bit. We're not taking much off of there. We're just going to get the profile to where I want it and go from there. I'm using a used 36 grit belt for this. Don't need anything super crazy. I do want to. I'm going to mess with the lighting just a little bit so that it's not too bright. I want it to be bright enough, but not too crazy. And then let's go ahead. I'll actually set up a few things to make my life a little bit easier out here. And boom. All right, so first things first, I of course got to get this profiled. See here. I don't think that it definitely does not have 2.4 thousand likes. We've only had a max of like I think 9 people on here at once so far. So I do have a lot of people asking about the shopping cart. This shopping cart was from Dollar General. It wound up behind my house. It was behind this fence right here in my alley. And it is like a brand new shopping cart. So I just pulled it into my backyard. I'm probably going to load it up and take it back over there to them. It's probably some random person. I don't know if they were homeless or if they were just trying to take stuff out of the dumpster and got scared away or something. But yeah, they brought a brand new shopping cart back here. So I'm probably just going to load it up into the truck and take it over to them. All right, so going to go ahead and grind this. My goal for this is to actually get the profile exactly where I want it. And then we're going to do a little bit of those preheat treat bevels. The whole point behind the bevels tonight are to go ahead and get the edge perfectly centered and even to where we want it, we're going to use the work rest for the initial part of this, and then we're going to go from there. So we're going to do work rest to get like the rough profile done, and then we're going to take the work rest off, and we're actually going to grind the initial bevels vertical like this. So we're not going to grind them like this. We're going to grind them vertically. It's going to help me get everything nice and straight and centered on that edge. We're only going to bring it up just under this line. We'll finish it out whenever we actually do, technically it's this lower line right here. We're going to go a little bit underneath that, and then we'll finish it out once we do the heat treat. You know, we want to be able to still straighten it and do stuff like that if we happen to get a warp. It's not going to take long to do the profile on this. Should be pretty quick. Hopefully this isn't too loud. If it is, just turn your volume down. But we're going to go ahead and start grinding. 36 grit belt. So the thing with this blade is it's going to have a pretty flat belly and then kind of a sweep up towards the tip. Some of these you'll see where they have almost no rock to them, so they have no belly to them. They're just all flat. And then my daughter's over here knocking on the window. And then you'll see some of them to where they have a pretty curved belly. I want to have a nice chopping area and then a little bit of that belly for rocking for veggies and stuff like that. So that's all we needed to take off on the edge, just a little bit. Now we can go ahead, and I think what we're going to do, just go ahead and finish the little bit on the blade, and then we'll kind of get into the handle. I'm going to contour it just a little bit. We're going to come up, put a little bit of a palm swell, and come up just a little bit right here, put a little bitty hook. We're not going to go crazy with the profile because it's not really necessary on something like this. This is really going to be held primarily like this. It's not going to be held like a hatchet, so, or something like that. See how many sparks you can throw. This stuff lights up like a firecracker. A firework. I would say there's definitely a lot of, this is definitely high carbon. If you see what's happening down here, that bad boy is throwing out a grouping of sparks like 7-8 inches in diameter. That was absolutely crazy. Turn some of these back on. So what I'll typically do is I will draw a profile on here just to give myself an idea of where I want to go, but I'm not always going to go exactly to that profile because I'm going to look at it and see kind of where everything's going, and if I like it to be a little bit bigger than that profile, then I'll stop grinding it and I'll leave it a little extra on there, because I can always grind it back more, but I can't add the material back on. And so like on this one, I felt like as I was grinding it, that if I would have came back to the line that's on there, that it was going to bring it too far back. So I'm just going to stop right there. Like that wedge. Look at how flat that is on both sides. Now, of course, there's a little bit of a burr on this side. Look how flat that is. That's all forged. That's the planishing for you. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get that spine kind of profiled. What I'm going to end up doing is just grinding this top section off. Whenever I do the actual spine, we'll do it vertical on here and clean it up that way. That way we get a nice even line. If you're trying to go this way with it, you'll end up putting divots that you'll have to get rid of later. If you just start from the get-go by working on the spine on the full platen, it's going to make your life a little bit easier. So we're going to take that material off. We're going to come inside here, take that little finger choil area out, and then these two little areas right here. And then we'll take the work rest off. First of all, before I start talking about this, let me read some of your stuff here. Panhandle and the homeless got them around Ohio. Man, with my town, we really don't have much homeless population. It's actually, we'll have a little bit of it as our city grows. It's been a little bit more and more, but really it's still very low. And especially where I live, there's like none. YouTube was glitching. That must have been why it said we had that many. Almost like Pinto forging in the dark of the moon. Yep. Old Smoky Moonshine. Birthday. Is that good? Was that moonshine good? I saw your picture of it. And yeah, Mr. Shegman right there. Happy birthday. Of course, I told you in the group already. So what I was going to say a second ago is whenever I'm grinding stuff like this, what I'll typically do, my belt doesn't stay centered on the platen. I'll have one side about just over 1/8 of an inch hanging off the side. You see the exposed platen over here. I'll have a little bit hanging off the side because what I end up doing is I tend to favor this side for hogging material off. And I don't want to have to mess with the tracking that much, so I'll leave it just over here, and then I'll go ahead and clean things up. And then anytime I'm going to do an inside radius or something like that, I'll just use this right side, because doing an inside radius on this side sucks because of this big plate right here. It really messes with you. Sometimes you can kind of get in there, but you get locked back up again. So I always hang the belt off a little bit on this side, and that lets me do everything that I need to do. So the moonshine wasn't that good? Dang, that sucks. Okay, so now we're going to do that finger choil area. Rough profile right there. Now I need to go ahead, clean up the spine, and we'll also do the cutting edge and the front of this with it being without the work rest on there. But fits the hand well. Just a subtle belly on the handle. It's going to fit your hand just right. And of course also being able to choke up 3 fingers on here and hold with the pinch grip. That's going to be real nice. Dude, I can see Chip's over here posting on his Shegman Knives and the Knives Templar podcast. That's funny. That's like me talking and my wife on the thing. So it is a little bit thicker, but it's not too bad. We're just right at about 3/16 of an inch, which of course is not thin, but we're probably a little bit over 3/16 thick. And I would say the bulk of it is going to be just in that little section right there. And then it immediately starts thinning out as you get down. And then of course our bevels are going to come all the way up to this line right here. And it's going to have almost a 0 edge on it. My goal for it when it's all said and done is for it to have pretty much a 0 edge. If I can get everything going to where I don't really have to do much sharpening, that way your bevels don't go down, then you have another bevel at the edge. It'd be really nice. But yeah, I want it to be as close to a 0 as possible, which would be 0. Okay, let's see here. So one of the things that I wish that this grinder had was a second row here. I wish that this went in a top row, and they probably have a modification to where you can get extensions for this hardware and just buy another set of these and another one of these so that you can do another stack of these right here and then another one of these plates on the top, or at least move this plate up because it already has all the rest of the hardware, and just put another blank plate inside here, maybe like one that's on the bottom, so that I can double stack this and use 2 arms. I really feel like this should be designed that way. That way I can have a separate tooling arm, because I don't get a second tooling arm with this. I have to use this tooling arm for everything, and the work rest just kind of bolts on to it. So I don't have one of them fancy crazy work rests that some of y'all guys have that articulates like 27 different ways. All right. So, like I said, now we're going to come in and we're going to clean up all those lines, make it a lot easier on us. But what I'm going to do is, to save myself a little bit of sanding later, I'm going to switch belts. This was a 36 grit. I'm going to go to a fresh 120. So a fresh 120 to do all of the little fine-tuned profiling. What that's going to give us is less grinding lines whenever it comes to finishing the profile later. The last thing you want to do is go in with your 36 grit belt and do a finish profiling on it, because then you'll have to get rid of 36 grit grinding lines, and that just makes it a pain in the butt later. So if you can do it at this step, even before heat treat, go ahead and do something like a 120 grit. You'll have way less lines that you got to sand out later. that is our profile. That is going to be absolutely awesome. Now what I am going to go ahead and do is just come in here and clean up this little area here with this belt and call it good. We're actually looking real good. So I'm gonna see if y'all can see this. Of course, nice and straight, all the way back through the taper on here. Of course, it'd be probably a lot easier if I just did it like against the dry erase board. There. All the way through. If I can. There. But yeah, before is that nice and straight, so that's good. But yeah, that profile looks good. I like the little subtle handle profile with just that little bit of a hook at the end there. I think that's going to look good. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is go ahead and get our cutting edge nice and tucked down here. So we got to get the cutting edge nice and even. It's pretty even, but you can see it kind of in this area here, it kind of favors this side just a little bit. The other side is looking good, but this side right here just bows out a little bit. This side looks pretty straight. But what I'm going to end up doing is we're going to come in here and we're going to grind it like this. So we're going to go ahead and straighten that up by doing it vertical on the belt. You could easily do it like this or like this if you want to. Heck, even with this one, because of how this is, if I put my work rest and attach it to the bottom of this, I could probably sit the blade, the spine on the work rest and just come back and forth and draw it while this is sitting on the work rest. But the easiest way to get that thing nice and straight is to come in like this, pretty vertical, because when it's all said and done, all the lines are going to go this way anyways. But we just want to thin that out. I don't want to get it too thin because I don't want it to warp a bunch. But we're going to thin it out and do them pre-heat treat bevels. I could probably do it with this 120, but I think I'm going to switch to a little bit heavier grit than that. Let's do, we'll go back to this used 36 grit belt here. I kind of have to take this belt off first. I mean, I don't want to double stack them. Let's see here. I like this a lot. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna come in and clean it up this way. It's gonna start looking good. The kind of thing that tricks you a little bit about where the blade is right now and the state that it's in, there's still a lot of forge scale on this, so it almost doesn't look like there's hardly any texture on there. But whenever all this forge scale comes off, there's going to be a lot of, see this little texture that's right inside here, or all of this, there's going to be a lot of texture in it. I think it's going to look real cool. Well, here you can see some of the texture throughout here. There's going to be a lot of that texture going throughout this, and what's going to end up happening is I'm going to have nice satin bevels up here and then that dark texture, and I'm going to end up darkening everything that's up here so that there is a big contrast between there. That's the goal, at least. Let's see if this shows up on the, I have to turn y'all this way. Okay. You can't see it a ton, but this section right here, this is that area. You see where it goes thin, big, and thin? This area is the part that was kind of bowed out a little bit. You can kind of see it a little bit in there. Now, of course, you can see over here, it's not like this was completely dished or anything like that. This was still a high spot down here. So it's not like the whole entire blade was cupped or anything like that. It kind of plays tricks on your eyes a little bit because the light is shining here. So you're getting a glint off the top edge too. So it's making it look like this is pushed over that way. But it's really not. But this area right here, that was a little bit of a high spot. That goes away as we start bringing it up. And then all I'm trying to do right now is I want this thickness to go all the way down to the thickness that we have in the heel here. So I'm evening it out to that heel, and then we should be good there. We'll bring those up. We're going to bring these up to about right here, pre-heat treat. After the heat treat, we'll bring it up to about right here. That's the goal. We'll see how that goes. And what y'all say here? So one thing I did, one of my knives, satin belts, bevels, yeah. Forged the texture on the flats, and then wire with the flats, glued it back. Yeah, and I thought about doing that. So I've got a whole entire stick of beeswax that I was going to do that. And I thought about doing the bluing because I've got a bunch of gun bluing stuff from working on actual guns. And I thought about doing that to this and then doing the beeswax on it, just heating it up with the heat gun and do that. I thought about doing that. I might do something like that. That's a good point. So now we're good there. Our cutting edge is nice and centered all the way down. What I'm going to go ahead and do at this point is now transition to grinding it at a little bit of an angle, not all vertical like that, just a little bit of angle. We're going to bring those bevels up just a little bit and then go from there. Probably say that about 6 more times tonight. Because there's so much forge scale on this, I'm going to go ahead and switch to a new 36 grit belt. There. Well, looks like I have like one person here. Either that or the little icon that shows how many people are on here doesn't actually tell me how many people are on here. We'll see how that goes. So I got... I think it is just you, Duck Rabbit. So I got this really nice color gradation on the forged texture flats. See, I've been thinking about doing that. There we go. Now it says we have 3 people. What's up, Jeff? So I've been thinking about doing that whole... what's up, Eli? Doing the actual gun bluing and then doing the beeswax on it. Seen a few people do that, and I think it looks really cool. This would be a really good option for that. So I might end up doing that on this one. So now, new 36 grit belt. We should get through this pretty quick. So I think that's going to look good. Now, of course, again, I need to bring it all the way up to here whenever it's all said and done. But I don't want to thin it out too much going into the heat treat, because I don't want the edge to turn into a potato chip. So I'm going to leave it like that on this side. Go ahead and grind this other side. And then go from there. One little side note. You gotta be careful whenever you're grinding a knife that's like this, that has such tall bevels. You know, this is, you know, right at about 3 inches, just over 3 inches tall. Whenever you're grinding bevels on something that has, well, that already have the bevels ground, and it goes from, you know, pretty thin edge to not a very super thick spine. All you got to do is one time come in here and accidentally put too much pressure on that spine once, and you'll drag that belt straight over that forged texture that you're trying to keep. So you want to be careful there. You got to come in and you got to slowly work your way closer to that spine. You got to hold it and get confident with it, because I'm telling you, the first time you accidentally bump it in like that, or you come in a little bit too, you know, flat as opposed to at an angle, it's going to take that grit and go straight over that forged texture, and it won't look that good, because you'll see those grind lines across that forged texture, especially if you're trying to keep a brute to forge look. So you got to go slow with this. You're not trying to speed racer your way through it. Let's see here. I'm watching just sewing my first knife sheath. Heck yeah. I'm here. Just can't get my phone to work on. I have that issue too. And you should definitely post some pictures of it. And you definitely should. It's just the TRE workshop on Facebook. And then the Knives Templars too. You can join that too. We post on both. Finishing up my Takiri. Paring knives. Yeah. Again, for you, Jeff, too, also go to the TRE workshop on Facebook. There's a whole bunch of us on there. It's not just a page about me. That's the reason why I called it the TRE workshop and not the Rivers Experience page, because I wanted everybody to be comfortable posting all of their stuff on it. Okay, now we're going to work on this side. going to go ahead and just do the bevels like that. What I'm looking for is where the highest point is on both of them. And that's all I'm really going for. This little area right here is probably, I wouldn't say the thinnest section of this knife, but it's a little bit thinner than this section up here, which is fine because I will be bringing them up a little bit higher in this section anyways. You can see that that's where it's pulling up on both sides, right up in this area, because that's the widest area. That's where it's getting all the contact. This little area right here is not getting as much contact because it's a little bit thinner there, both sides. You can see that dip on both sides. Of course, that'll go away quite a bit whenever we actually bring the bevels up to the full distance. But we're going to end up with a cool little wavy texture line as we go through here and see that transition between the two areas. I am going to go ahead and thicken the spine up just a little bit because as I was grinding it, we got pretty thin. Now, of course, we're nice and straight. You can see there. But I am going to bring that back just a little bit on the 120. And we're going to go ahead and give myself a little bit of thickness there because I don't want to risk the edge cracking or potato chipping or anything like that whenever we quench. That's looking good. Okay, we'll switch to the other belt. For the people that are new, yes, that's a shopping cart. That's from Dollar General. I'm thinking a random homeless person left it in my alley. Now we got a little bit of edge thickness on there. I don't need to leave it, I don't need to make it super thick or anything like that. We should be good. Now, mouth's getting dry. Now I'm going to switch to a Scotch-Brite belt. Did all of y'all see the little vise that I made? What's up, Matt? What's up, Don? Let's see here. And yes, it's amazing how much a new belt cuts. I mean, a swag table in the mail. You'll love that swag table. So that right there, that's the little knife vise that I made. It has came in super, super, super handy. And coming back over there in just a second. So put this down off over here. For anybody that hasn't really seen it, this right here, super easy to make. I'm going to do a YouTube short about it. I already filmed most of it. This is just a railing, like a railing support. It already has the little locking Allen bolt on it. And then this is just black steel pipe that I added 2 nuts on. and then put two little, hand tightening bolts on it. This is a dowel rod that got split in half and then material removed from it. I added leather to it so that I can put a knife in here. So super, super, super simple. This costs like $20 to make this, and it rotates all the way around, does everything that I need it to do. This right here was easily one of the simplest things that I've made, and it only took just the only thing that was kind of crazy was having to weld the nuts on here. Other than that, it's just you could use a drill and a cut-off disc if you don't have a porta band saw. There's my swag table right there, the old porta band on it. I used the porta band to cut off the threads. There was about 1.5 inches worth of threads on both ends, and then drilled the actual holes for this to come through. Welded the two nuts on there. The trick to it, of course, got to weld this one, slide it past here while it's in this, then weld the second one. So you can't take this in and out. Of course, you can take the clamp part out, but that is very, very simple right there. What's up, Chad? How you doing? Let's go ahead and get this Scotch-Brite on here. So, Chad, I need to, I'm going to call you tomorrow, and I think, I don't know who all told you, but I went full-time knife making, and I say full-time, I'm a full-time knife maker and almost a part-time life insurance salesperson. I'm doing all my testing or my licensing stuff right now, but I'm going to call you, and we're going to talk about a few things. So yeah, I've been meaning to call you for a little while, and I was like, man, I need to call him. And of course, Matt was like, yeah, you need to call Chad, and I was like, you were right, I do need to call him. So I'm super happy with the whole full-time knife making. I've had a few things line up perfectly to make this thing work out, and to where I've been able to do this. And it's one of those things where sometimes you're meant to do a thing, and a lot of things happen that aren't your choice, and you go, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. I've been forging at the Dragon Forge. I bet it's been awesome, man. But yeah, I'm gonna come down and see you, have you come up here, see me, and we're gonna do some fun stuff. I'm about 2.5 weeks away from having my grinding room set up, and we'll have all the stuff in there. So we'll have the grinders and all kinds of stuff in the grinding room. And then I've got another forge that I'm going to be making here soon too. So we are going to have some fun. All right, I'm going to use Scotch-Brite belt on this, just kind of clean up all the edges and everything like that. And then we'll be able to kind of call this one done. pop y'all in here. Oh, take y'all out with the door frame there. All right. There. So, see what y'all say here. And yeah, I'm planning on going to Blade Show Texas. I wish that I would have had enough. I wish I would have known that I was going to be doing this, because I would have got a table there so that I could sell my knives. That's kind of one of those things that I wish that I would have planned out. But of course, I didn't know that I was going to be going full time knife making until, of course, like about within the last month. So yeah, I'm going to be there. So I'll be there hanging out, filming, doing all that stuff. I'm going to be going to Texas and Atlanta. And then, of course, I'll be at some Texas and Louisiana knife shows as the year progresses and everything like that. Yep. So we will talk about that tomorrow, won't we, Chad? That's kind of what I was going to pick your brain about a little bit. Elijah, were you going to go to Blade Show Texas? I mean, you're in Texas. It'd be crazy for you to not go. So let's see here. We'll be there. It's in our backyard. And yes, it will be. So this right here, this is of course what we forged out, and it's looking good. Gotta love that. So that is our, of course, preheat treat. I didn't want to go too thin with it, but I'll go ahead, get it heat treated, everything. I think that's going to be an absolute beast when it's all said and done. I think it turned out awesome there. Now, of course, like I said earlier, we're going to bring these bevels up to about right here when it's all said and done, and then put a satin finish on them. So sand them up to about, I'll probably hand sand them either up to 400 and then go from there, or I'll sand them up to 600 and then bring them down to 400. It really depends on what it's looking like, but that's the goal there. And I think that this is going to be a nice thickness, you know, decent thickness on the spine. Got the taper tang. This will end up getting tapered just a hair more whenever I actually go in and I grind it flat and clean it up. I'm assuming that by the time it's all said and done, the thickness of the end will be closer to about the thickness of a penny, if you want to say anything or something like that. It'll be about a 16th, and so it'll be pretty thin, maybe just under that, but we'll have that tapered down. So you've never been to any of the Blade shows? You definitely need to do that. We are going to absolutely link up. That's gonna be cool, and you'll love it. It's gonna be kind of ridiculous because you being at Texas Blade Show, you're gonna have a lot of people want to take pictures with you, because there's a lot of people that knows who you are. So. But yeah, I like this. So for real though, Elijah, you're the reason why I actually made this. So I saw the one that you were working on, and it made me go, yeah, I'm gonna make it. I didn't get your email. I don't think I got your email. I'll look it up, and as soon as I get off this, I'll look for the email. And but yeah, I saw yours and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Now watching your video, I was thinking, because the next one that I make like this is gonna be integral bolster setup on it, and it's gonna be interesting because I saw the the stuff that you ran into, which is gonna help me out whenever I do my integral bolster one. So I've got some 1-inch round bar, and I'm gonna forge that out into into one of these, and it's gonna be fun. I wish that I had a press or a power hammer. Getting to see you use those that setup on your power hammer to draw all of this out. Jeez, that would be a blast. But you know, we'll make it happen. And with this, whenever I do that, I'm going to do, like I said, 1 inch round bar, 5160, and forge that out into an integral Serbian. And then, again, focus on some of that stuff. Make sure to glue the spine back and do all that stuff, because it sucks going through that whole entire process and then having to end with a blade that's not an integral bolster. You know, it sucks to have that happen, but that knife still turned out good. So it was a good build. And with this one wasn't super hard because, again, we started with steel thickness that was about here. So it's not like we did anything super crazy or anything like that. The area that I used wasn't as thick as this, because this is the main area. It was one of the sections that just kind of is like a helper spring that goes on here. So it was a thinner area, but old Ford truck spring right there. So whenever I went through and did this, the big thing was compressing all of this and drawing out a tang and then pulling everything out to where you want it and getting everything pulled out, a heel pulled down and back, everything like that. But that's going to look good. And again, the whole point behind doing a lot of the forging is being able to maximize your material. I try and tell a lot of people that one of the things that I had to think about whenever I transitioned from a YouTuber that made knives to a knife maker that makes YouTube videos is you have to maximize your steel as much as possible. So doing stock removal is awesome whenever you can do that. But for me, you know, every piece of steel that I have is money. And that's how I pay my bills now. So you have to maximize every single piece of steel that you have so that you're able to actually pay your bills instead of just making fun YouTube videos of making stuff that looks cool. A lot of the things that you make, if I'm going to invest my time into making something, I need to be able to sell it. So being able to do the forging process is a big key in being able to use as much material as you have. And that's what I've been going for, is being able to maximize everything. But yeah, I love this thing. I think that is going to be absolutely awesome. That profile turned out how I wanted it. Nothing too crazy, nice and subtle, not a whole bunch of funky stuff going on. I'm trying to decide exactly what handle material I want to use on it, because I have a few different things that I might end up doing, but I kind of want to do a more subtle handle material. I've got some cool wood from Oleg from the knifewood.com that I might put on here. I think that's going to be the thing that stands out for it. So cut a chef's knife and a cleaver. Preforms, yeah, out of leaf spring. Make neck knives, tiny EDCs. Yep, I do all of that stuff too. You know, the thing that I've been working on, of course, is show y'all getting all of these all set up. So whole bunch of EDCs and different materials, and then getting my camp knives finished. You know, getting all the handles set up on them. This is a rough contour, but just nice, simple, comfortable profiles, decent thicknesses and things like that. Those are what I've been really trying to go for on a lot of these knives that I've been making and I've been forging. And the one that I'm really excited about doing This was one of the ones that we forged a couple of weeks ago. I'm really excited about that one. This is a good size camp knife. It's got a good size handle, and the way that I designed this knife was so that you can use it with a glove on. So if you're going to be out in the woods and it's going to be cold and you're going to need to use your gloves, or you're cutting wood, you're cutting things down to build a fire and do all of that, this handle was designed for it to be comfortable whenever you're wearing gloves. So whether you have a slightly bigger hand or you're going to be wearing gloves because you're going to be transitioning from breaking down wood to be able to start your fire, do all that stuff, this whole entire knife is a camp knife that's built around that thought process. So you don't have to take your glove off. You don't have weird hot spots whenever you're using it with your gloves. You can just pull it out, do what you got to do. It's a simple profile. Doesn't have a bunch of crazy recurve stuff or anything like that. It'll puncture real well, slice, chop, do whatever you got to do. So simple knife profiles for a lot of these things. I'm really excited about that one. The normal size version of it, the actual EDC, is this right here. This is one that we forged a few weeks ago. You can still kind of get your glove comfortable on that, but you see the difference there? This knife, of course, is made for when you don't have gloves on. Just good, comfortable. I've got medium to large size hands, so most people can use this. My hands aren't small, so if you have a slightly smaller hand than me, it's probably going to be fit in your hand real well. You're typically not going to have much of a bigger hand than me. If you do, you've got an abnormally large hand. So again, simple profile. It's meant to put in work and not do a whole bunch of crazy extra things that people put on their EDCs. And then, of course, the small EDC, which is this one right here, which is kind of like a 3-finger lanyard, chill little knife. That's a rich light. So it's like a paper micarta. I love it because it looks like wood grain. So ones like that, super simple, super chill, super fun. That's the thickest one out of all of them. This one is that's a 1/4 inch thick EDC, small EDC, 1/4 inch thick. It's pretty big. It's kind of unnecessary, but that one's going to the guy who makes some of my hammers, and of course I need to get a hammer from Elijah. I need to get a 3 1/4 pound rounding hammer from him. You hear me throwing shade at stock removal? Listen here. I think that if you're making knives, you're making knives. If you're able to make a knife that has a good heat treat and that has a good handle profile, that it has thoughtful ergonomics and stuff like that, then you're a knife maker. It doesn't matter how you got there. You could water jet your knives and then do the bevels and do all that stuff. You're still a knife maker. The big thing is, again, just focusing on getting a good heat treat so it holds the edge, having good edge geometry for the intended purpose of the knife, whether it's a chef's knife, whether it's a camp knife, whether it's a chopper or something like that, and then making sure that it's comfortable for the hand for whatever task it's going to be being used for, like a chef's knife or a camp knife. It's got to have purpose behind it. And if you're doing that, man, you're a knife maker. You don't have to forge if you don't want to. Let's say your arm hurts after forging, or your elbow gets blown out easily, or you have shoulder issues. Then don't forge. It's okay. If you want to do something, you want to still forge, get yourself a press or a power hammer, and you don't have to worry about it. And because technically they are forged, okay, if you're doing that. So get a press or a power hammer and then do the rest of it in stock removal. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to be swinging a hammer. I prefer it. I like forging by hand. I enjoy it. Whenever I get a press, I'll be using that. And you know, I'm not going off on you, Matt. I'm just talking about it. You and I've talked plenty of times about this, and my thing is, again, you know, however you make knives, as long as you're making them and you're putting in the right thought process behind them, it's awesome. Uh, and yes, there's a difference between a stock removal guy and a person who forges. Um, you are two different types of knife makers. But I will tell you this: even if you forge knives, you're still a stock removal guy. You're just a stock removal guy with extra steps. Because in the end, you still have to get on a 2x72 and grind it. So you're still going to be doing stock removal. So it's kind of just depends on what you're going to be doing. So for me, the big point for me behind the forging process is being able to go through and maximize your steel. And I have done forged to finish blades. I got a couple of them on my website right now, where all I did was I forged them, put handles on them, put an edge on them, called it done. But two examples right here. Okay, this knife right here was forged out of a piece of material that was only about this long. No matter how you stock removal that, there's no way to stock removal a piece of steel that is this long into this knife. So we were able to forge a knife this big because we were able to forge a knife. We got a knife this big because we were able to forge it. There's no way you can stock removal that. So it really comes into play where you really need to get into that particular process if you want to maximize your steel and be able to make money off of this without spending a whole bunch of extra money. And then, of course, this profile that we did right here, one of the videos, this was a little piece of cutoff that wasn't even, is right at about 3 inches long. Just a weird shaped hook piece that I cut off the end of a blade from 80 CRB2. And we forged a double distal. So distal all the way to the tip and through the tang. And then got a full size knife out of it. Full handle, everything. Again, there's no way that I could have stock removal this knife out of that piece of steel. So we got a nice 80 CRB2 knife profile. We forged it. And so it's not that stock removal is a bad thing or that forging is superior. There's just certain instances that no matter how much stock removal you do, you're only going to get so much out of the material. But if you are able to forge and you've practiced it and you've done stuff like that, you will be able to help yourself out and maximize the amount of material that you have. And it's just a helpful thing to know how to do. I enjoy the actual forging process. I love being able to start with a piece of steel, forge it into a knife, and just have that process go down. I really, really like that. I wish a lot of people would get into it. So let's see here. I can and will make a knife without stock removal. So you can absolutely do it. If you go to the riversexperience.com, it's my website on there. I've got a camp knife I've got a camp knife Bowie, a regular camp knife / EDC, and both of those are forged to finish. So it is forged all the way down to the cutting edge. And the only thing that was done was cleaned up a little bit of the profile around the outside of it. I think it was a little bit less than a 1/16 of an inch around the outside. And then I put a handle on it, put an edge on it, and it was done. That was it. You will have to do some stock removal because you're going to have to still put an edge on the blade. But that is more sharpening than it is stock removal. So, yeah, you can absolutely do it, especially if you're doing blacksmith knives and stuff like that. You know, super, super fun. If you haven't made a blacksmith knife, you should absolutely do that. Let's see here. Exactly like Jay Nielsen said. You can make a knife from a ball. Absolutely. Uh, and to be clear, Matt, I knew you weren't challenging anyone. Just over here ruffling feathers. Respect all the craft, my path. Yeah, see, again, I really wish Matt would show his stuff off more. Now you can go to his Instagram and do that. Again, Matt, did you put your Instagram in the last live stream? Because I need them to be able to see the stuff that you're doing to this 2x42. Matt's is now a 2x48. So this is the Grizzly 2x42. I'm going to be working with it, trying it out, seeing how that goes. I'm going to be making a sharpening attachment like what Dennis Tyrell does that he sells. I think you get his sharpening attachments through Maritime Knife Supply. I'm going to be making one semi sort of like that to actually go to this. The whole point behind this Grizzly 2x42 is for sharpening. I'm going to do sharpening and just some higher grit belt stuff with it. Almost all the belts that I have for it, they're actually on a little jack that I have here. The lowest grit that I have is 120 grit, which is that one right there. And I've got all the way up to 800, but I'm going to have all the way up to 2000 grit on them. So that whole machine is just for that. It's not going to be hogging material off. And then I've got one more 2x72 that I need to get, and then I'll be turning my Beaumont 2x72 into a 2x a billion. Again, if this is your first time seeing these, I'm going to show you some belts that you've never seen before. Are you ready for some grinding belts that you've never seen before? So they are touching the ground. That right there. What's up, Jason? So they're touching the ground. They're this tall. Let's do regular 2x72 belt. These belts. Don't you wish you had some of those? Don't you wish you had a 2x72 that used belts like this? Imagine how long they'd last. So this is a whole stack of 36 grits. Those will be, I am modifying the KMG that I'm using right now, that guy, to be able to use those belts. So it's going to be awesome. And the cool thing is, I will have those set up, and I'm going to show y'all how I modify the machine. It's just going to have like a 12-inch contact wheel, and I'm going to have a work rest that works with it. But I'm going to show y'all how I actually modify that 2x72 to work with those huge belts. So I am going to be doing another 2x72, which will be just a standard 2x72 that tilts and does all that stuff. And then I'll have the 2x42 for sharpening. And then I'll have the 2x, I think it's like 170 or something like that. We'll have that. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm excited about that. I'm really, really, really excited about that huge grinder. And it's going to be fun. You can do all kinds of stuff. If you haven't seen somebody use them, if you go to Blackbeard Projects, you'll see him every once in a while go to this this 2x whatever, and it's got a big wheel on it, but you don't see any of the rest of the grinder. His belt, or not his belt, but his motor is like on the floor, and he's grinding all the way up here. Those belts are super long. That's what I'm going to be building. It's going to be pretty cool. So we'll see how that goes. I am going to be disassembling this workbench. So I won't really need this workbench for all of this stuff right here. So that's all coming off of there because it's going to have its own place inside the other shop. I will be cutting a hole in this wall right about here. So there's going to be a full-size door like what I have here. A full-size door going into this shop right here. And then that's going to be, of course, the grinding room. So that way I was originally going to put the door me step y'all back here. So I was originally going to put the door dead center. Boop, and I have a double door, but then I was thinking about it, and you lose a lot of wall space whenever you do something like that. Let me put y'all back over here, because you said I'm lagging. Let's see. How's that? Anyways, so yeah, I originally was going to put it in the center of the wall, but you end up losing a whole bunch of wall space to be able to mount things and do all that stuff. So I think I'm going to put it here and call it good. And it's going to be a little bit better. And there's the wife. She does all of my stuff. So this, there we go. If you ever see somebody randomly commenting while I'm talking, she's the one that's doing that. She makes like a lot of my thumbnails too. Especially, she makes like all the thumbnails for the lives. Matt said hi. Any tips on building versus buying a forge? I will tell you right now to, if you can, build your first forge. Build your second forge. Build your third forge. Build your fourth forge. If you have to, at some point, then you can buy a forge. Like if you want to get a fancy one like the Apollo forge, that thing's badass. But build them, man. Absolutely build them bad boys. This right here, I've been using this forge for a little while now. This is like my 5th or 6th forge that I've made. I've got a whole other forge build underneath here for whenever, if I'm doing Damascus or something like that. That forge is like a sacrificial forge for that, so I don't have to screw up this one. So that one uses a 1 burner, and it gets up super, super, super hot. It's got a smaller internal chamber. It's literally for the forge welding process. So I only use that forge to set the welds and get that billet forge welded, or that block forge welded. From that point forward, I use this forge to move the material out. So once it's welded together, forge welded together, then I just use the regular forge to do all the rest of the stuff, because I don't need to use flux or anything like that. And I really don't use flux anymore. I use just kerosene. So yeah, the flux absolutely eats through the floor of your forge, turns it to glass. So all I do now is just kerosene. But anyways, back to the forge. You can get all these fire bricks off of hightemptools.com. They're super cheap, and they actually come to you not broken. So you can get those. These burners are off of Amazon. Only thing I did was I upgraded the lines. And I will have a 100-pound. These right here are small. I will have a 100-pound propane tank here shortly, which is like this tall. And that'll help me a lot. So this 2-burner forge right here, burners off of Amazon, the valves off of Amazon, high pressure regulator off of Amazon. They come with came with like a 6-foot hose, and then this hose that you have here is actually propane rated lines. It's actually gas lines. The lines that come with it are like fancy water heater lines. You want to switch them out to actual propane lines and get fittings that actually work together. And yeah, it doesn't get any easier than this. You can actually do a lot of this without having to do all the welding and the framework on here. So I did all of this because I wanted my burners to hang off the side and come into the side, because what it does is it creates a vortex inside there. The flame comes across, hits the top of the bricks here, comes down, comes back, wraps itself back up. So when you have knife still at the bottom here, the flame itself isn't directly hitting it. You're getting the whole internal chamber hot. And then you're putting your steel in there. and it makes it to where you don't have weird hot and cold spots on your steel. But it took about 5 forges for me to realize that, and to not have the burners coming in from the top. People think sometimes that these are covering holes here or something like that. The bricks that I have on the top don't have any holes. This is for whenever I'm taking steel out and letting it cool. I let it cool on top of these because these bricks will warm up. Those top bricks will get to about 150 to 200 degrees by the time I'm actually setting something on top of there. So whenever I sit it on here, it's not going to want to buckle or miss or warp or anything like that. But I sit them on top of that. And I've got a space in the middle of it. So when I'm working on integral bolsters, the bolster area will sit inside that gap that's right there. And yes, this is a big forge. I say it's big. This is 18 inches deep. So whenever you got to put something in here, it's that deep. That was probably a weird look, but you know, it's that deep. That was. Hopefully, none of y'all screen capture that or anything. But yeah, it's a big forge. I want to be able to do big buoys. Calm down. So yeah, I wanted to be able to forge big. You're making me laugh way too much. So you have to. I wanted to be able to forge big knives with it. So that's the reason why I made it as big as it is. And it is a very large forge. Not many forges are going to be 18 inches long. So, but yeah, the yeah, she's out here having fun, making me laugh over here. I find it hilarious that she's the one that thought that was funny. So, oh man, I can't wait to watch this back. This is gonna be fun. So. But yeah, the forge that Baker Forge and Tool has, that big one that they made, the big Apollo forge that has 2 ribbon burners in it. That thing's absolutely massive. Yep, that's pretty much what I looked like. I was doing the exam on the forge. Should have told it to cough or something. So I wanted the forge to be big enough so that if I was working with something that was like a 15-inch knife or something like that, or a big kukri or a big buoy, yeah, or a sword or something like that I could actually work with it pretty easily. And that's why I made the forge as big as it is. It kind of doesn't, sometimes it doesn't look that big whenever you're just looking at it like this, but whenever you actually get to the side of it and you realize how big it is, it's just something that you forgot your glove. I almost said that too. I almost said that. Get one of those the gloves to check out horses or whatever it is. Man, yeah, that's yeah. I'm gonna have to put a diagram of it up on the dry erase board. It was MOD. I had to pull my sleeve up because it went all the way to here. Oh my gosh. So yeah, it's I wanted it to be big enough. Now that actually is another thing. So one of the things that I was just over here messing with my lights. One of the things that I was looking at was heat treat ovens and things like that. And a lot of the times whenever I'm talking to people that are suggesting heat treat ovens, they always tell me to go with the bigger one. Uh, and that's what I'm going to end up doing. If I do a heat treat oven, I want it to be in the 20 plus inch long or deep range, so that if I want to do a big kukri or something like that, or a big buoy, that I can actually heat treat it and have the whole entire blade in there, or something like a wakizashi. So yeah, then absolutely, man. I mean, when it comes to a lot of this stuff, you got to ask questions in order to kind of get that stuff figured out. But I will absolutely suggest a lot of the times, if you're going to get into this stuff, as much of the stuff that you can make as possible, the better it is. So I am always a big, like, you know, build your things if you can. Person, dang us. I don't know if I'm gonna get a heat. Well, I guess they make those heat treat ovens that like stack up that are vertical, so you can put swords in. You could probably do one of those in it. But if you can make the things before you go out and buy them, that's kind of the way to do it. I'm not saying you have to make a 2x72. If you're gonna do a 2x72, get the Revolution grinder from Brian House and build it yourself. Weld that thing yourself. If you have the ability to do that, or if you have a welder, you don't need a super fancy welder or anything like that. You don't need one that has gas. You can do a simple one from Harbor Freight and weld that puppy together. The cool thing is Brian already did all of the R&D to get that grinder to where all you have to do is clean the material, weld it up, follow the instructions, and call it good, and save yourself a whole bunch of money. So go that route if you're going to do it. And the cool thing is, something that he does that a lot of people don't do is you can actually buy the plans for the 2x72 Revolution. You can buy just the plans, go and get all your own materials, and even save more money. It's the same thing for the forge and stuff like that. You can use those plans and get all your own stuff and build it if you wanted to. So you don't have to buy all of his stuff that's made by him. And I think that that's cool. Now, one of the things that's a little caveat to this. So I'm all about building the things if you can. It's the reason why I made this super simple, again, my little knife vise. It's the reason why I made that. Because I had the ability to. Could I have ordered one? Sure. But I needed one soon so that I could go ahead and start hand sanding all these knives. This is a super handy tool whenever you got to hand sand 11 handles or the 30 that I have going right now. Whenever you got to do all of those, it's real nice to have a knife vise to be able to go through and hand sand whenever you need to. But I'm all for making the tools that you can, but I'm also a person that super believes in supporting fellow makers. So anytime that I can support a person like Kyle Daly or Brian or a lot of these guys, Elijah with Fire Creek Forge, he does the hammers and does stuff like that. There's a lot of guys out there, the other guy, the Two Bastards Forge, Frank over there, him making hammers and doing all that stuff. There's just so many people that do this craft, and I like supporting the other guys that do make the tools that make our lives a little bit easier, because you're supporting people that are within your craft, and I think that that's really, really cool. Now, if you have the ability to make a tool, a lot of times, if you message these guys that build these things, they'll tell you what you need to build it, and you can just build it yourself. As long as you're not trying to rip them off and sell it for less than what they're selling them for. Sometimes they honestly don't care. You can even do that. But it's just real nice to be able to just do your thing and just get after it. I like that. My first 2x40, it was technically a 2x48. It was nowhere near as fancy as this guy. It's in the intro to my videos. It was a simple 2x48 that was ran by an adjustable speed angle grinder that I lathed the drive wheel for out of wood. Glued up a block of wood, lathed it all down, crowned it, did all that stuff. And you actually adjusted the tracking by adjusting the angle grinder. It was pretty fancy for a very non-fancy thing. But I used that for like 6 months before I bought my 2x72. 2x72 is going to be, out of all the things that you could buy in your shop, your belt grinder is probably, I won't even say probably, your belt grinder is the number one money maker that you will own. Hands down, it's the number one. Once you start forging and do that stuff, an anvil and a few good hammers and a forge, that's a good money maker too. So because you can extend the material longer and forge it and get more money out of it that way. I'm not doing this to try and be rich. I'm just doing this so that I can support my family. And it's one of those things where a lot of this stuff, whenever I talk about the material costs and doing different things like that, so that you can actually pay your bills, so that you can do this for a living and make it work. I have been able to do that so far, and I've been doing really well, and I've been blessed to be able to do that. One of the things that I was able to have going into this is I already had a big social media presence, and that did help a lot. Transitioning from, I got to transition from a YouTube knife maker to a knife maker that does YouTube, as opposed to a lot of people that are knife makers that try and transition into YouTube to help their brand. I already had the brand, and it made my life a lot easier. So from High Temp Tools, hightemptools.com. It's one of the least expensive places to buy those bricks. And you can buy a lot of different stuff from them, but you can get all the different thicknesses. You can get the thinner hard bricks. These bricks are rated to 2600 degrees, but you can get multiple different thicknesses. You can get ones that are slightly thicker. So this section of bricks are the thickest ones that they make, because the flame comes across and hits those. So this is basically the bottom of your traditional forge. But yeah, you can get all the different bricks there. But what I like about them, we've all ordered bricks from different places. You get them in, some of them are cracked or they're chipped up and stuff like that. I haven't had a single brick come in from them and it not be perfect. I haven't had a single one broken. And you can get them in bulk. Like you can buy like 12 of their bricks. You can buy a whole bulk order of them, and it's not expensive at all. I know, man. That's one of the things that is my next one. I want to do a ribbon burner on a forge setup kind of like this and have it come in from the side. I almost thought about just getting one of the burners from Brian House. Instead of building the whole Apollo forge, I thought about just getting the ribbon burner from him, and then getting my own tubes and everything like that, fan, everything. But because he sells the actual made that are already cast ribbon burners. So I thought about getting that from him and then just building a forge around it. And making it easy and making it a little bit less expensive. It's an awesome forge. I just don't know if I want to spend that much money on a forge. Who knows? But you can also do a smaller ribbon burner. So I've seen people do smaller circular ribbon burners. I've seen them do smaller rectangle ones. It doesn't seem like a super complicated thing. I think that the biggest thing is figuring out how much of a chamber that you need and how many holes that you need in it, so that so that the flame comes through right, so that it actually works properly, so that the gas and air can mix exactly how it needs to. You know how finicky burners are, and the nice thing about his is he's already did the R&D for that burner, and he's already been able to show that it works and everything. So I thought about just doing that. I don't tend to do forges that have the big plate steel all the way around them. A lot of mine are just like this. So I haven't really thought about, because I could build an entire exoskeleton if I wanted to. So if I wanted to come down and do all that, you've got yours set up and everything. If I wanted just to build an exoskeleton on it, if I needed the extra support or something to be able to hold that burner, easily do that instead of having to spend all the extra money to get all that plate steel. Don't know yet. High temp for forge welding, stainless car. Yeah. So one of the things that he did too is he made those little insert trays that you can buy that are basically the same size as the hard fire bricks, and he's been using that with forge welding, and those seem to have worked out real well because it has those little channels. Let's see here. Also, once you start doing this yeah, and time becomes way more valuable. And that was one of the things. So the reason why, again, I'm getting rid of all these small propane tanks, and I'm going with, I'm going to be going with a couple of 100-pound tanks, because it's just the amount of time that it takes to take those, fill them up, do all that stuff. Don't want to mess with that. And time is a huge thing, especially like right now. I've got like 30 knives that I'm working on, and it needs to, if things don't work out right, you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs or doing like the stuff that doesn't help you do things. And my thing is, all my actions need to be able to, if I'm working in the shop, those actions need to be able to make me money in the end. If I'm doing something and it's not going to end up making me money, it's the wrong thing at that time. And the big point behind that is because right now I'm trying to build up inventory on my website and get everything ready for upcoming blade shows and all that stuff. And everything that I'm doing right now has to pay off so that I can kind of get the momentum going. Once I get all the knives on the website and get all that stuff going, I'll be able to do more random stuff. But right now, I can't just sit back and do random stuff. A lot of this, if it's not going to make me money, I can't really focus on it. I will tell you this, though. Since I've been doing this, my home life, my life with my family has been so much better. It has been amazing being able to be around my family, be around my kids, be around my wife, do those things. And it is absolutely awesome being able to be here and be present, because whenever you work for somebody else, especially the job that I had, my job, customers had access to me from 6 a.m. to midnight. So they always had access to me. My job always had access to me. I would be delivering something to California. I'd be going up to Kansas. I'd be going to South Texas. I'd be going all kinds of different places. I might see my family only a little bit of time here and there on a few of those days or weeks. And what's up, Mule? So it has been a real blessing to be able to switch to this, be able to pay the bills, not have to work for somebody, and just enjoy my family. And I think that that's a huge thing. Being able to do this for a living and being able to enjoy this and get stuff done, get things knocked out, and still be able to do all the knives. It has been awesome. And I'll tell you again, the biggest transition has been time. It's been focusing on getting all the projects set up for the next step, and then working on another thing, progressing it to the next step, trying to prioritize the right things. I really want to work on my grinding shop. Like, I really want to work on that grinding room. It's going to be a 12 by 12 grinding room. That's a big grinding room for a person to have. And I want to work on that, but I had to stop. I want to complete a project. I want to start a project and complete the whole entire thing. But I had to tell myself, right now I'm set up to be able to grind everything that I need to grind. I'm set up to be able to make these knives. The grinding room is going to be a luxury. And the thing is, that's not going to make me money right off the bat to be able to pay bills. Making these knives and finishing these 30 knives that I'm working on, those are going to pay the bills. So I need to finish these knives, get them on the website. Once that's done, then I can focus on stuff like getting the grinding room set up. It's been, those priorities and figuring that stuff out, man. You gotta get it all good. Ran my own business, and I wore too many hats. Yep. That's most rewarding things ever, but eventually got burned out. So I did have my own business. I did stonework, granite countertops and different things like that for a while. And we did custom home remodeling and stuff like that for a while. And yes, we wore way too many hats. We wanted to know how to do everything so that if an electrician came in, we could QC their work and make sure that they actually did everything right, so that we weren't going to have a home inspector come in and then go, nope, that doesn't work. And then we have to wait another couple of weeks for the electricians to come back out, fix their stuff, and then wait another week or so for an inspector to come back out and check it and be able to tell them, yeah, it's cool, it works. So we had to be able to do and have the knowledge of all the different steps in that, so that we could tell them, nope, inspector's not going to pass that. Nope, that's not okay. We can't do that. Got to fix it now while you're here. And so that you didn't get screwed over on having to wait for people to do things. That's how, I don't know how those like home remodeling TV shows do their stuff. They're like, we got 4 days to remodel this entire house. They're like knocking walls down, changing the structure of the house. I'm telling you right now, where I'm at, if you take a toilet and you put it on like your front porch, like if you're pulling it out and you're just getting ready to trash that toilet, you put it on the front porch, or you're putting it somewhere in the back where somebody can see it, you'll have a city inspector drive by. Are you remodeling your house? Do you have a permit to remodel your house? Let's see here. 26 years, driving truck, so burnt out. Yeah, hey, knife making is a great hobby. Absolutely is. Ground quick. Chat. Oh yeah, so if you haven't seen it, this is what we were working on tonight. That's what we got. This is a preheat treat setup. That's the one that we forged out. It turned out real nice. Yeah, Chief Everything Officer. That is 100% correct. And whenever you start doing this for a living and you're thinking about, you got to make sure that you're collecting the right amount of taxes for knife sales through your website and through different things like that. Because I am, whenever you work for somebody, they have people that file paperwork and do all that stuff. But you got to make sure that your taxes go to the right people, so that the IRS isn't looking at you going, well, you should have collected X amount of taxes. Where is this extra money at? And all that stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it. Yeah, I think the handle's going to look really good. I got a piece of cool wood from Oleg, and it's going to go, I think it's going to go real well with this build. but yeah, uh, it's a. Let's see here. Also did deep internal inspection of his forge. I did do a deep internal inspection. You probably want to go back and watch that. We laughed for a little bit. I went elbow deep into the forge to show how deep it is. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you got to think through. Like tomorrow, I need to do a big order for a lot of steel. So I've got a bunch of projects that I have coming up, and I needed to get a whole bunch of. I've got some 80 CRV2 that I got coming in, some 1080, some. I actually have a piece of this. So it is. I've got a few bars of this coming in. So this is SC125. Okay. So SC125. This, I've got a few bars coming in. This is like 26C3. So good for chef's knives and things like that. This was actually sent to me by Chris Steele from Australia. He sent me that and some Apex Ultra. But I'm going to be doing some of that. I'm getting a few bars of it, 4-foot length bars, and then I've got some 5160 coming and a few different things, and just getting prepped for. The goal is to be able to sell out of my website and then have yes, the 125 CR1. Yep, very similar, and so I've actually got some of that coming too. The 125 CR1 that is coming from Maritime. I ordered some of that too, and they heat treat the same. That's going to heat treat the same as 26C3, and so is that one that's back there is going to heat treat the same as 26C3. I really like the 26C3 for chef's knives. It just makes a great, super hard. You can get that stuff out of the quench like 69 HRC and then temper it back. Let's say you want a chef knife that's like 65, 64, 65 on the hardness scale after you actually go through and temper it. You can absolutely do that with 26C3 and that 125 CR1 and that SC125. I think that's what it is. Yeah, the SC125. And makes a great chef's knives. Really does. You can get a super thin edge on it, and that bad boy will hold the edge for a while. So, really like that stuff. Chris actually got me on to the 26C3. He sent me some of it about a year and a half ago to make a chef's knife out of, and it was awesome. It creates a beautiful hamon. So, I really like it for that. And the only thing is, you'll see some people forge it. A lot of people do stock removal with it. I'm going to be forging some of it. The one thing that I want to mess with, so you do a lot of 52-100. I got a big old, let's see here. So I got a big old bar of 52-100 here. And I plan on doing a bunch of stuff with it. So that's a big old 1/4 inch thick by 2-inch bar. And I'm going to be messing with that. I know you like the 52-100. The only thing is that I'm telling you, my next big purchase, I'm trying to debate. I want to press, but I really want a heat treat oven. And there's a lot of steels that I want to mess with, but it's a lot easier to heat treat them in a heat treat oven as opposed to doing it in the forge. So I'm thinking that the next purchase is going to be a heat treat oven. And yeah, I've been making them a little over 4 years. So I've been sharpening and reprofiling and doing that stuff to knives for a long time. I've been sharpening my own knives for about 20 years. And doing that. I was a knife collector for a long time. I've got a whole lot of knives. most of them are folders and things like that. EDC knives. I've got real old knives. I got new stuff, things like that. But uh, I've been sharpening them and profiling them and cleaning up knives for a long time. But making them, yeah, just a little over 4 years. And being able to do this on YouTube, and again, my learning curve was really, really, really short. It was a very fast learning curve because I've been able to watch myself for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours by editing my videos. So whenever I see myself do something that was kind of like not where it needed to be, I can easily adjust that for the next time that I do it, and it makes it simple and makes it nice and it lets me learn a lot faster. And I also tend to grasp concepts of things real easily. So um, it's fun. um, Now, where was I at? Heat treat oven. uh, I want to do that because there are a lot of steels that being able to get your heat treat dialed in real nice is real nice with the heat treat oven. And whenever you're selling a lot of knives, you really want to make sure that your heat treats are exactly where they need to be. I tend to use a lot of the same steels because I'm very comfortable with heat treating those with my forge. But whenever you start getting into more complex steels, having a heat treat oven is really nice because there are a lot of steels that require a soak time. Now, I'm able to dial in that with my forge a little bit better. Whenever you get thermocouples and things like that, you can actually dial the forge down. I can dial that forge down to 1550. I can dial it down to 1600. I can do 1525, 1500, do all that stuff and get the forge where I want it to be. And to be able to heat treat. But again, there's still going to be some fluctuation depending on the temperature outside, the temperature inside my shop, between a lot of different things, if it's windy, stuff like that. But I want to make sure that if I want to broaden, my knife steel choices, that I get a heat treat oven to make sure that everything's, if it needs to have a soak time for 5 minutes, that it gets a 5-minute soak time and all that stuff. Slowly piecing my shop together. That's awesome. Me too. I'm slowly piecing my shop together. It's only taken me, over 4 years to do it, but slowly but surely. Easy to heat treat stainless. Yeah, I mean, between talking to you and talking to Matt about that, whew, that's being able to do stainless, that ABL and everything. I mean, he got that bad boy. It's almost filing his hardness files. So it's proof that you can do that and get it going good. Let's see here. So no magnetic plus 100 degree. So yeah, I have magnets and stuff like that by the forge to be able to do things like that. But what makes your life a lot easier is having things like a laser thermometer. That way you can actually check the internal tips of your forge. You can check the temps on your steel. You can do things like that. Having a thermocouple. There's a lot of stuff that you can do to be able to dial in your forge. There's a lot of things that you can do to be able to get things to where you want it to be. I don't tend to do the non-magnetic because here's the deal about non-magnetic. If you go in, as soon as you reach non-magnetic, it's going to have to cool a ton to be able to be magnetic again. So if you accidentally got it in there and got it to, let's say, 1500 degrees and you tested it, boom, non-magnetic. Cool. Now I got to soak it for longer. and you soak it for longer, and now you're 1600 degrees, and you're thinking, well, I mean, I was non-magnetic. I should be fine. You quench that bad boy at 1600 degrees, you're going to get blistering on there. You're going to get a lot of stuff that's going to happen. You risk cracking it, things like that. So the non-magnetic thing, it's helpful whenever you're first getting into it, but a lot of people don't realize that once you become non-magnetic, in order to get magnetic again, you got to let it cool a lot. So, and you don't know if you accidentally, you were checking it and you're like, okay, cool, it's still magnetic. Okay, cool, it's still magnetic. Something happens and you look back at it again and it went from 1350 degrees to 1500 degrees, like fast. You know, if you can't dial your forge down to only be running about 1600, 1700 degrees and your forge is running 2000, and you're trying to fine tune it, but your forge is running 200 or 2000 degrees on the inside, it gets kind of finicky. So think about stuff like that too.
Isn't heat treating all about refining your grain?
Yep.
And so you want to be careful because different temps will cause different refinements in your grain.
Yes.
So that's why magnetic is not.
Correct.
Okay.
Y'all can probably hear her. So, yes, and like what she was saying. Now, of course, that was during thermal cycling and grain refinement and stuff like that. And yes, overheating is absolutely super easy to do in a forge. But a lot of people don't think about stuff like that because whenever we're doing our videos, we're not really breaking that stuff down to. It's not sharpened, lady.
I don't.
She just doesn't like me. I'm over here just moving the blade around. It's not sharp.
Sharpened. I can still poke my face with it.
So that's what happens when Mama comes out here and sees you moving your knife around. See what it looks like. Watch Forged in Fire. 100%. That's absolutely true. But there's a lot of things that you can do to be able to correct yourself whenever you're heat treating in a forge. Now, of course, I've heat treated hundreds and hundreds of knives and forges. So, and again, I don't branch out and use a lot of crazy steels. I use steels that have a lot of similar heat treats and use similar quenchants to make your life a lot easier. But there are certain steels that have complicated structures. You know, their makeups are more complicated, and you've got to get the steel to do certain things with your soak times and stuff like that because you need them. Now, of course, Elijah can say some of the fancy terms. I don't know all of the fancy terms for all of these different things, but whenever you're going through it and you're doing this, the big thing for me when it came down to my heat treat process was getting used to doing a normalizing cycle, getting used to doing grain refinement cycles, getting used to doing heat soaks and soaking the steel, making sure that it gets to the right temperature and that it has that time, and then going in to the quenchant and having a good heat treat process for what you're doing, and then knowing how to temper that particular steel to get to the hardness that you want. Because not every steel is going to be 400 degrees for 2 hours times 2. Not every steel is going to be that way. You know, if you're going from 67 HRC and you're trying to get down to 64 HRC, there is a temperature and time that lets you do that. There's a recipe for that with that particular steel. If you want to go from 67 down to 60, there is a temperature and a time that lets you get to that. It's figuring out those things, doing the research, doing the reading, and learning those recipes to get everything where it's at. Yeah, that right there. All the fancy terms. Are you ready to take on Ben Abbott? Now, if y'all didn't know, Elijah was on Forged in Fire, Fire Creek Forge right there. he got to experience all that. Uh, so Trax Islamic razor for a thermometer is a great tool. Yes, it is. Are you ready to take up Ben Abbott? We'll see. So I got to actually hang out with Ben Abbott at Blade Show Atlanta. We were messing around at um, it was the Broadbeck booth, if I'm right. And they had a pneumatic power hammer that they had somebody make. And the reason why I'm thinking it was Broadbeck is because it was a different type of blue than the Ameribraid. Yeah, it was different because the Ameribraids had like all of Neil Kawamura's stuff. This was over. They had a pneumatic power hammer that they did, and Ben Abbott was over there with like a piece of 2x4 running it, just crushing the 2x4. He's a pretty cool, chill dude, and but yeah, you will see. It's the biggest thing that I can tell you about heat treating with forges is learning to do things the same way each time you do it. Have the lighting the same way each time you do it. Don't have a whole bunch of different lights happening. If you're trying to pay attention to the color of the steel and all that stuff, if you're going to do it that way, you need to control your environment so that you're not screwing it up each time. And then also test your stuff. If you're going to be using a different steel, take that steel and practice. But take that steel and heat treat it, snap it. Make practice knives. Make knives that you can go out and you can whittle wood with, you can chop with, you can actually do some edge retention tests for a while. Use your knives and do that. If you're going to be selling them for a decent price, you need to make sure that you're selling them something that's a good product and not just a knife-shaped object. And a lot of that comes down to being consistent with everything. Consistency, like Don says right there. But there's a lot of things that you can control that make your life a lot easier and make your knife making a lot more consistent, a lot better. And if you sell somebody a knife that's just amazing and it's the best knife they ever used, there's a good chance they're going to want to buy another one from you. So think about that. Put the magnets back on the forge and get a laser. I would. Again, for people who are just getting into knife making, you can do the magnet testing, but over the past 3 years, a lot of us guys that do YouTube have been able to kind of step out of the normal time-lapse everything and do more educational. Over the last 3 years, a lot of us have been able to actually take the educational role and actually teach y'all a lot of the stuff that comes into play, like being able to heat treat it properly, being able to think about the ergonomics of a handle, being able to make sure that if you're making a camp knife that's an actual camp knife, if you're making a chef's knife that it's an actual chef's knife, that you're thinking about different processes. And prior to that, though, when it was everything got time-lapsed and no one talked about anything, it was the common consensus that you could just do the magnet test, or you'll have some knife makers that do videos that just go, test the magnet, oh, it's good, boom, quench it, and you don't know if it's motor oil, you don't know if it's the right quenchant, you don't know what it is. So some of that stuff isn't super helpful, but the thing is, a lot of people watch those videos and you didn't really have many people breaking down the process to really try and show y'all all the little things that we do, even the boring crap. Sometimes, whenever I put out videos and I show y'all from beginning to end the handle shaping process and all the stuff that goes into it, some people are going to think those are super boring because it is 20 minutes of the same crap the entire time. But if I don't show you how to contour a handle and why I'm doing some of the stuff, you're just going to try and replicate it with how you might think things work, and then it doesn't, things don't line up the way it's supposed to. So if I just time lapsed everything and I only showed y'all the highlights, and y'all didn't realize that at certain points I was using hand files because hand filing looks boring, or at certain point I was using different parts of the 2x72 or different things like that. If I'm not showing you that stuff and those steps, man, you're just going to assume half the steps. And I get it. 10-minute videos are super easy to watch. But whenever you're trying to learn how to make knives, the thing is, 10-minute videos go viral. 20-minute videos that are teaching moments don't really go viral. I understand that. If I wanted to make a bunch of viral content, I would just do a bunch of time-lapse crap where I'm not talking. But if I'm going to try and teach some people how to do this and help y'all out, there's going to be some damn talking. It's just the way it's got to be. It's the way that it is. If you went into a class to learn how to work on a car, and what they did was they put a video on, and it was just all time lapse. People working on cars are like putting an engine together, and they skip from, they're like putting an engine together. You got the block, and then they're time lapsing through, and then, oh shit, there's pistons. Oh damn, there's heads. Oh damn. Okay, where did the lifters go? Where did the springs? What the heck? Now there's a intake on it. You wouldn't know torque specs on hardware, on bolts. You wouldn't know what you were supposed to do with gaskets and seals and all of that stuff if you don't have somebody tell you all the boring crap, tell you all the crap that is the in between, and kind of help you understand those things. Sometimes you got to make a 20-minute video about shaping a handle just so that people can understand how it actually goes, what different belts we use, slack belts, all that stuff. And the hard part is a lot of people who do YouTube want their stuff to go viral. I would love for all my content to go viral. It'd be fantastic. But it's not the way it's going to go. I have videos that have done it, but you know, sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and do some educational crap. I just got a huge, about 6 huge 30-inch diameter, thick saw blades. Hell yeah. I have a few people that have made knives out of those. I have a few people that actually have those big saw blades, and they had all their knife profiles water jetted out of them. So it's just a huge saw blade with like all of these knife profiles just water jetted out of it, and it looks really cool. As another one of my favorite bladesmith says, you have to know the why behind what you're doing 100%. Well, thank you, Matt. And I enjoy this aspect of it, and I enjoy talking to people and actually showing y'all a lot of this stuff. The channel videos could have. Well, I'm happy about that. And that's one of the things that I really like. You know, I don't have a massive channel, but the people that do watch this at least get some good takeaways. And whenever I first started doing this, so whenever I was younger, I wanted to be an art teacher. So I went to college to be an art teacher. And my art teacher was one of the, like, all my art teachers going through school were like my biggest, you know, supporters and advocates and things like that for me throughout my educational career. And I was in art the entire time. As a very artistic person, loved that aspect of school, and I wanted to be an art teacher and do that. And I wanted to be a high school art teacher. And this is cool because I get to do the teaching aspect of a specific art style, which is bladesmithing and knife making, and I really enjoy that. So it's worked out. God, you and Elijah, do as you do. Elijah's live stream. But yeah, the cool thing about Elijah too is he has a lot of knowledge, a whole bunch of knowledge when it comes to doing this, and he actually he does put a lot of that knowledge into his videos, and I really appreciate that because the thing with him is the knives that he makes, he could easily just not talk and just put out the content and do some of the stuff like Faraway Forge or Blackbeard Projects or a few of those guys. He can easily do that, but he chooses to go ahead and do the voiceovers and do the educational stuff too. I'm betting that if he didn't do that, that it would get more views than it does. Now he gets plenty of views on his videos. Those ball bearing Damascus knives and a lot of the stuff that he does is super cool. And so the type of content that he puts out could easily be super viral. And it's just amazing builds. And I appreciate the fact that he takes his time and does the talking. Dennis Tyrell has a good mixture of that. You know, he's got his super educational videos, and then he's got his videos where he's doing like a crazy sword, and those get millions of views. You know, his channel is super awesome. I appreciate him. He does some stuff that I've done. I do some stuff that he's done, and we just try and make this an awesome thing. um, wow. I like how we ground a knife in like the first 45 minutes. We've been talking for like an hour and a half. uh, gonna get there and get some hammer time too. Yeah, I can't wait for you to come back down here, Matt. That's gonna be fun. And I will be having some people come down and do a few things. I've got one of the guys that makes some of my hammers. He's going to come down and hang out in the shop. And then we're going to get a few people to come up here. And once I get all the grinding stuff out of this shop and it's just mainly forging stuff, I'm probably going to add one more forge and another anvil. So I'll have 3 anvils instead of the 2. And we'll be able to get a few people in here and do some hammer in type stuff, and it's going to be fun. The being able to teach people the thought process behind the way that I forge things, and hoping to kind of get people to where they can do that, it would be fun. You know, being able to just show hammer techniques and ways to do things to make your life a lot easier. Be able to forge for a really long time and not have any blisters. You know, it's there's a lot of things that go into that. How to not get a bunch of elbow fatigue, shoulder fatigue, and everything. It's cool. Yeah, and I did want to be a teacher, and I get to do that on here, and I get to impact a lot more people than just the local high school. So it's worked out better. I get to teach thousands of people how to do things, and I think that it's pretty cool. I love that aspect of this. And whenever I first started doing YouTube, and I wanted to get into knife making, you know, of course, we did everything that everybody else does. You go through and you watch all the knife making videos and everything. You watch all the Trotsky videos. You watch all those guys. It's you go through and you watch 45 time lapse videos, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make a knife, and you realize that you actually didn't learn shit. So you're sitting there, you're going through it, and you're like, wait, what do I do now in this particular step? So I enjoy the teaching aspect of that. Shop guy, knife guy. During my stay for Blade, Texas. Oh yeah, yeah. We've got Matt, we got plenty of stuff to do whenever you come down here for that. Plenty of stuff. So it's gonna be fun, and we're gonna get a lot of things knocked out while you're down here. Um, it's cool because Matt, what he does, he lives up in Colorado. He drives down here, stays here for a few days. We go to Blade Show. He hangs out for a few more days, then he goes back, and it's pretty cool. Uh, and I'm excited that you're going to be going, Elijah, to this. I want to be able to hang out and be able to talk and chat and do things like that. I love talking to other knife makers that do YouTube because it's a different thing. Like being able to actually talk with people who do this and understand how much difficulty you add to a build whenever you decide you're going to film it. Whenever you're thinking about just making sure the camera's focused, making sure that you're not in a shadow to where you can't actually see what you're doing, and being able to just figure out all the crap that you have to do whenever you were filming a whole entire build and you forgot to turn the mic on, you forgot to turn the camera on whenever you were grinding out a knife and you ground the whole entire thing and you're like, oh man, I didn't tell the camera to record that. Dang. Or you do the heat treat process and your camera was like the battery died halfway through it. Yeah. Stuff like that. It's fun because people who do a lot of this stuff understand how that works. Yeah, it's a huge challenge. Put a GoPro on your head and film it like that. First person shooter, like the first person thing. Oh my gosh. That would be actually, I need to do that when I'm forging. So all you see is the hammer coming down and all that stuff. I need to do a first person version of that. Give you all the forging experience. Sitting there grinding, sparks just hitting the camera the whole entire time, coming around the belt. Dude, yes. I've had batteries die in the middle of something important. I'll tell you right now, this is the biggest pain in the butt when you're filming. Okay? So, you'll be sitting here and you'll be grinding, okay? You're sitting here grinding, and for some reason, the camera decides it's only going to focus on this top contact or this top wheel. You're grinding down here, just out of focus. You're not super out of focus, but you're just out of focus. And it's focused on this the entire time. And you're like, oh, damn it. So you'll have stuff like that happens. And I will tell you this. The nature of YouTube is you got to decide that you're going to do YouTube for the sake of doing YouTube, because your first year, unless you accidentally go viral, your first year, your videos are going to come out and you're going to get like 3, 4, 10 views on those videos. Like a video that you spent 3, 4 hours editing because you're just getting into this process with editing and filming. So you took a knife build that would have typically only taken you 6 hours and you made it take you 12 hours because you were filming. And then on top of that, you had to edit the video for like 3 to 4 hours because you're just getting used to that. And then you put it out and 10 people watch it and you're like, okay, I put out the same type of video that guy put out and he got 1 million views on that video and I got 10 views? What the heck? And then you do that for a year. And you're like, by the end of the year, you might have something go semi-viral, get like 50, 60, 70,000 views, and you'll get like, 50 to 100 subscribers off of it. And you're like, okay, cool, we're doing good. And it takes another half a year, hopefully. Some people have been doing this for like 3-4 years, still only have like 1,500 to 2,000 subscribers, and they're still putting out content. So you have to decide to do YouTube whenever you're going to do it, and not that this is going to build your brand. If you want to build your brand, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, kind of, but Instagram, Facebook, YouTube Shorts. You can easily build your brand off those 3 things. You don't need a Twitter. You don't need all of the other things. If you just did Instagram, created a Facebook page for your business, and then post constantly, consistently, and then if you want to do YouTube, focus on the YouTube Shorts rather than having to film huge long videos. Just film the highlights on your phone, so you don't need a camera. You can film it exactly how I'm filming this, like this. Now this is the only way you can do live streams on a phone. You have to do it like this, and it is in this mode by default. But if you're going to get into YouTube, understand it's not going to be instant success, that there's a lot that goes into it. It makes your knife builds take forever, because you're setting up camera angles, you're redoing things, you're second guessing yourself on how you should film something or what I should do to make this interesting, all of that stuff. And you could sit there, try and do an intro, and you're like, I'm going to do a 2-minute intro, and 25 minutes later, you finally got the 2-minute intro that you wanted after you've redid your intro 10 times. And it's like, especially whenever you're first getting into this, because you're talking to a camera and it seems kind of awkward, things like that. But you got to decide that you're going to just do it. Got a couple of shorts with 10,000 views. Usually get 4 to 7. Exactly. I'll tell you, the YouTube Shorts is going to kind of phase out TikTok. So for the fact that you can do your Instagram stories and your Instagram videos, so between Instagram and YouTube, TikTok's probably going to get phased out. They're not paying very well to people who are who actually get paid through TikTok. They kind of cut their payback a lot, so a lot of people are kind of going away from that. YouTube has never really paid that well for YouTube Shorts, so you're not really missing anything if they cut anything back. But that's if you want to build brand recognition and do stuff like that. It's the easiest way. Other than that, knife shows do help, but a lot of people go to things like blade shows to see 2 things. They're either there to see all of the manufactured knives, so all of your, I'm just gonna throw out 2, Spyderco, stuff like that. They want like the crazy knives that have been waited to come out for those shows. They want to get like the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th one. They want those doorbuster knives. They want to go look at all the balisongs and nowadays fidget spinners. They want to go look at those, and they want to go look at the Mastersmith's knives. That's what they're really looking for whenever you go to that. When a knife maker goes to Blade Show, they're looking at all of the people who are making the knives, all the forge, people that are forging their knives, all those coal booths and all that stuff. We're super interested in that. But all the people that are going to, like the bulk of the people, they go in and they hook them left, straight for all the manufactured stuff. All the folders and all that stuff. That's what they're looking for. But whenever we go to blade shows, we're there to talk to people that are knife makers. We're there to pick the brains of other people. We're talking to Lynn Ray. We're talking to your Kyle Royers. We're talking to your Steve Schwarzers. We're talking to all these guys that have been making knives for the longest time, that we read their books and we look up to them. That's what we're doing. And really like that. But a lot of the guys that are going are not there to do that because they have no clue who those guys are. They could care less if somebody's a master smith. They're like, does it have cool flipping motion? Oh, it's smooth. Oh, I want that knife. It's a $700 flipper knife. Holy crap, I need that. They go over and they look at something that was like meticulously put together that is like $700, that was handmade no machine process. And they're like, why the hell would I spend $600 on that? But they'll go buy a thing that was built by a robot for $600. Some China steel. You ever try hollow grinds? Is it increasingly difficult with the larger diameter? I'll tell you, hollow grinds are more complicated just by default. Hollow grinds take more work. A 10-inch contact wheel, perfect for a lot of hollow grinds. You can do bigger contact wheels if you want to. I do them, and there are certain tools that you can get that make your life a little bit easier. So Kyle Daly makes a few things. This is one of them. As a little sanding buddy. Sanding buddy. So this is to match a 10-inch contact wheel. So you can grind it with that, and then you can take this and be able to hand sand that hollow grind. He sells these. These are 3D printed. They're not expensive at all. But yeah, hollow grinds, not that bad. I tend to not do a bunch of hollow grinds. I do a lot more flat grinds, and I do hollow grinds if somebody asks for it, but I don't tend to make a lot of knives that are hollow ground. So I'm worried about if I pay for a table, I'm stuck and may not sell much. I really don't think you're going to have an issue with selling stuff. So I know we're not all Trollski. We're not a Trollski person. Everybody loves Trollski and understands who he is and all that stuff. And coming overseas, he sold out everything in the first 2 hours at his table. He brought a bunch of stuff, and he sold it all in 2 hours. And then spent the rest of the time walking around the show. So you can do that. John Norwood sold a lot of his hammers and everything. I think that if you're going to have a booth, you definitely need to bring hammers. Your hammers and your hatchets that you do, you will sell those at these shows. Especially whenever people see things like 4 and 5 pound rounding hammers and the way that you do your hammers, man, you are going to sell them bad boys. Plus, by default, you're gonna have me telling people to go and buy your hammers. So that 5 pound rounding hammer that I have from you is the number one hammer that I use in my shop. This thing, that is the number one hammer. I use this to forge so many things. Now I've been using it for so long that if I want to, I can planish with that thing. So, yeah. I think that if you're going to do it, though, don't just bring knives. Bring a few hatchets and bring some of your hammers, and you'll definitely sell those. And then, let's see, your knives. The knives that you sell are going to be perfect because you make very useful knives that have profiles that make sense. They're very usable, tools. So I don't really think you're going to have an issue. If you bring some of those ball bearing Damascus knives, dude, holy crap. And yeah, it's in February. People are going to absolutely eat that stuff up. They really, really will, because it's a striking knife. It stands out. And then you're going to have people that do know who you are because they watch your videos. So it's going to be a little bit different for you. It's the same thing with Dennis. I will tell you this. The thing that's going to be semi-hard for you is the amount of people that are going to walk up to you and want to talk, that are going to want to talk to you. They're not really going to be there to buy stuff from you, but they're going to be like, holy crap, is that Elijah? Oh my gosh. And they're going to talk in front of your table for 2 hours. That's going to happen. I'll tell you, if the biggest benefit for you would be to have you and another person with you that can confidently talk about the stuff that you brought there. So that this is kind of what Kyle does. Kyle Royer is kind of what Dennis does. He has other people now. Dennis, he sells plenty of his knives, and he does hang out at his table, but he brings his buddy with him that also does some of the stuff in his shop and things like that. He's also a knife maker. He brings him with him, and he can actually talk about the knives and still push them while Dennis is having a 1 hour long conversation with the fan. So you're going to have to think about that at Blade Show Texas. It's going to be worth it for you to have a booth, um, and to have people meet you in person. They're going to love that, eat that up. But you want to bring somebody with you so that you can have them sell your stuff when you're talking to people. If you walk, okay, so uh, the first time you walk up to Jason Knight's booth, you're going to realize, wow, this guy brought 4 knives. He brought 4 knives. And he has a line that is 75 people deep. He brought 4 knives. And it'll take him 2 days to sell those 4 knives. Because even though he has 75 people in his line to talk to him, they're all there to talk to him. None of them are there to buy his stuff. So he does bring like his wife and brings a few other people, his kids, and they actually push his product and push his stuff while he's there talking with everybody. So just think about that. That's gonna be a big thing for you, because you're gonna have people want to talk to you about all kinds of stuff. But your hammers and your hatchets and the useful knives that you make are going to be a huge thing for you. Let's see here. It's been real. Someone's hanging out. Chad. Yep. Yeah. See, I've just figured that out. So I spent the first. I went to I think 5 blade shows now, and I've just been kind of walking around, talking to people, doing that stuff, and moving forward. Whenever I'm going to blade shows, I'm hoping to be one of the exhibitors that have the booths and tables and stuff like that. Just because being able to go to those knife shows, it's the biggest shows that you'll ever be at. And this Texas one last year was actually really, there was a ton of people there, absolute ton of people. And the one in Atlanta is even larger. It's twice the size of the Texas one, and you get a lot of opportunities to sell your knives and all that stuff. But yeah, that's my thing. And yes, you do build a lot of connections. So basically, what happens is uh, on Friday night and Saturday night, uh, I think in Texas it's primarily Friday night. They might even have it Thursday night. They have a thing called the pit where you basically go and you hang out with all the other knife makers, with the vendors. So that's another big thing for you as a YouTuber, being able to talk to vendors and possibly people who will sponsor some of your stuff, whether it's going to be for uh, materials, whether it's going to be for uh, sponsors for steel, for handle material, sponsors for all kinds of different things. There's all kinds of different things that you get sponsored for. But being able to talk to those brands, Lawrence Lake with Maritime Knife Supply, being able to talk to all those different guys, the Broadbeck guys, the Marabraid guys, the Beaumont metalwork guys, the Paragon, Even Heat, and just get to know all of them is a huge benefit. And that's what we use the pit for, so that you can be at the booths the entire day, but whenever you get done with that, you'll hang out in the pit and you actually talk to all of the fellow knife makers, and hang out with all your guys that you've been watching make knives forever and read all their books and everything like that. It's pretty cool. uh, that's what I focus on, is like usability of the knives. They're all working knives. They need to be working knives. Now if I'm making something for like a YouTube challenge, or if I'm making something that is going to be for like, it's like a very specific knife that somebody wants, like a Bowie that has a 15-inch blade on it. The overall length is like 19 inches. Is that a very useful knife? No. Is it going to have a ridiculous guard, a ridiculous profile on the handle because it's massive and it needs a hook around your hand so that if you do swing it, it doesn't fling out of your hand because that knife weighs 3 pounds? Is that a useful knife? No. I do make those for YouTube because they are striking thumbnails. You know, the Arkansas toothpick that I'm about to start working that has the D guard through tang. It's going to basically be a short sword. Is that a useful knife? No, it's really not. It's going to be a really big, or really small sword, if you want to call it that. But me personally, if I'm making something that I'm selling as an EDC, it really needs to be an EDC. If I'm selling something that's going to be a camp knife, it's a user knife, it needs to be a usable camp knife. If you're going to call it a thing, it really needs to be the thing. And like whenever I'm doing handle profiles and stuff like that, that's where a lot of the stuff comes into play. Whenever I'm thinking through the shapes of things and not doing like Coke bottle handles on every single knife, but actually doing handle profiles that are a little bit simpler. So no matter how someone's hand is shaped, it's going to really fit the knife. Hey, you too, Don. I'm about actually done here. We've been doing this for almost 3 hours. But having a handle that actually makes sense, a blade shape that makes sense, something that's not super crazy, that's not overdone or anything like that. That's really what I'm trying to go for with a lot of these so that they are a comfortable, user-friendly user knife. Whew. Man, you know what? It's starting to get cold out here. I think I need to call this thing. I think it's like 45 degrees out here right now. What I mean is I don't make wall hangers. Correct. Wall hangers are not useful knives. They're really not. I do have wall hangers. There are knives hanging on the wall, but they're like knives that I use in the shop. These are knives that I don't typically sell to people. So I make them here and there, and I have fun with them. I'll end on this. So I'm going to show y'all a couple of knives that just hang out in the shop for different things. So these don't get sold. If I'm making one out of like a monkey wrench head, like that right there, I don't sell these just because this is super questionable steel. And then like little random Ferris wrap scalpels. Like I'll make those, and I'll give them to like my brothers and stuff like that. Like those are cutoffs. These are built to be neck knives. So it comes with a little sheath, but you can also put a little clip on here and do a little draw down sheath and for opening boxes and doing all that stuff. I make those for that, but I don't really sell these. These are knives that I just use to cut open boxes and cut stuff with in the shop. There's a shop knives. It's way better to use known steel if you're going to sell them. All right, good night, y'all. Hey, and I'm actually about to call this too. So everybody, I'm going to go ahead in this here. We've been going for almost 3 hours. It's been an awesome live stream. Thank y'all for participating. Thank y'all for talking. Thank y'all for communicating in the chat and doing all that stuff. It makes these things absolutely awesome, and it makes this absolutely fun. Guys, someone just left one of my knives in a drawer. I'd be very disappointed if somebody does that. Although I have sold knives to people who live in areas that they're not even allowed to carry knives like that. Sold somebody, he bought my huge buoy that I made. It's like 18-inch overall length. He lives in a place where you can't even carry a butter knife. Lives in Belgium. If you look up the laws for knives in Belgium, they're restrict as all get out. And yeah, I don't know where he's going to carry that knife, but it's a big old knife. All right, guys, let's go ahead, call it here. Y'all have an amazing night. Stay safe out there, and I will catch y'all next time. See y'all. And by next time, I mean Tuesday. Bye, y'all.